Our next Fireside Chat is going to be, we're going to have Nader back up on the stage, and he's going to be chatting with the Director of the Office of Data and Innovation, Jeffery Marino, and they're going to continue the conversation about building a sustainable culture of innovation and the critical work that ODA is doing across the administration, which I can personally attest to. Please join me in welcoming him.
So Nader got to move to Costa Rica. Also, he gets to dress like a professor now, and I still have to wear the blue suit. So one day I aspire to get to Nader's level, but for now it's good to just have a conversation.
Thank you, Jeffrey. It's, I'm humbled to be here and having this conversation with you. So I have a question for you.
Okay.
What is the secret sauce behind program impact?
So I think it's been discussed quite a bit on stage today. It's one of ODI's core values, and it's also one of the absolute hardest things to do in government, in business, but especially in government because of the structures that we've built, and that's collaboration. And I think that one of the reasons why we have, there are many reasons why we have a hard time with that. One of which is that we operate in department silos, we operate in policy silos, and we operate in a way that doesn't really translate to the way that people live their lives. So when we're trying to have impact, we can't have that kind of impact from one department or based upon one policy, but it's a really interwoven fabric of those things, which means we need to be deliberate about building the teams and facilitating the work to collaborate. Being willing to pick up the phone, as Amy said, and make the phone call when the collaboration's not working. I think that, and I can talk a little bit about the Engaged California work that we've done, reaching out to California state employees to ask them what they think the secret sauce is. And I'll tell you, they really expressed a frustration with the lack of ability to collaborate because of these silos, and in many respects because of their leadership. There can also be a culture of, and I'll just, I'm probably, I know I've been a victim of it, and I'm probably a perpetrator as well, but we can sometimes be gatekeepers, right? I mean, you mentioned that when you got there, now you want to protect it. And so we've got to be willing to take those risks, be vulnerable, connect with our colleagues and our partners, because that's the only way that we're going to succeed at this.
How would you take the risk in a way that it's quote unquote calculated in this sense? Because like you're there and we're all talking about taking risk and be more nimble and etc. How would you take that risk in a way that it's calculated and you know that you're pushing for the common good and for the public good in a way that, how do you do that? Is it about like, we're creating coalitions so that I have other folks backing up? Would you,
Yeah, I mean, Amy said it really well, that not to underestimate the length of time that it takes to build those relationships. And I think, I also sort of saw this coming up first as a volunteer within California state government, working with Mike first and then very closely with Amy, and I really learned the power of building relationships, starting not necessarily with an end in mind, but just knowing that we all have the same goal. And it also translates to something that I learned becoming the leader of the innovation department for a state government, where typically when you think about innovation and you hear about innovation in the private sector, innovation is based upon disruption. And disruption is a virtue. You can upturn an entire industry as long as you have enough venture funding. And I think that in government, we often operate a lot on political capital rather than venture capital. And so it's a real wise investment to be building that coalition continuously. So when you are making the phone call, it's not necessarily a disruption, it's a connection that then leads to that collaboration.
Jeffrey, I very much appreciate that. And since we're talking about that collaboration and others have talked about it, if we just narrow it down, this is your first month. You're in the office as the leader of one of these amazing new institutions and organizations that's going to disrupt and innovate. How would you approach that collaboration? Would you just go out with like all the team members for a coffee? Like, how would you exactly do that? This is your first month. Could you walk us through that process?
Well, the first thing that I did actually, and my team who's here, shout out especially to Amy Ives who's here, can attest to this. The first thing that I did when I addressed my team was clarify who our customer was. And I think that it was sort of, it was difficult at ODI at first to understand who our customer was, because we really came up building and co-leading with CDT, the COVID-19 website. And so in many respects, that was a direct to Californians digital service delivery. But truly, the Office of Data and Innovation was established to serve other government departments. That's one of the unique things, and one of actually the most brilliant things about the way that the department was established. We don't have a policy mandate. Our mandate is to help others implement their policy mandates. And so that often, that's what gives us the freedom and flexibility to be able to be more nimble, agile, and collaborative.
Can we pause on this?
Sure.
This is actually fascinating. You talked about understanding your customers, and you're talking about your role as an organization that does not have a policy mandate, and you're not provide. Do you provide funding, or do you provide grants?
No.
So that's kind of similar to the role that we were playing at the governor's office.
Take a grant if you're offering one.
I don't have any yet. Well, we can talk actually at Berkeley. There might be opportunities. When I was at the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, it sounds like there's some grants over there.
We're working on it.
Office of Planning and Research, we were kind of playing a similar role on the policy side of things, trying to coordinate interagency efforts. We were not much provided. We were providing grants, but not as much, and also we were not a regulatory agency. And I felt it was easier for us to focus on bottom-up approaches, build trust, and etc., compared to when I was working at CARB, or California Air Resources Board, which is just super top-down, and it's a regulatory agency. And when you're having all the lawyers walking around, and I have my great friend here, Phil, who's our attorney at California Governor's Office of Planning and Research, or LCI. But it's in that legal environment, it's hard to build trust, I believe. Do you think is that the case in your situation as well?
Yes.
But, yeah.
Absolutely. I think that we've come a long way because, and this is one of the things I think that we should really celebrate, that I have personally witnessed over the several years that I've been in public service. I think that the culture, I can see the culture changing. I think that the fact that the Governor's Innovation Fellows are in the room really speaks to that culture change, and that we are building a culture of trusting one another to take the ball, pass the ball, run it down the field. And early on when we were, and I think one way to answer your question too around grants, like the value that we provide is the capacity, right? So in that sense, we are bringing that value of the capacity to a team when they are looking to innovate on a program or product or service. But what we ran into very early on in ODI was the difficulty that we were sort of seen as an internal vendor in that way. So we would get requests that say, can you build us this app, or can you build this API? And the answer was, yeah, we could, but we can't do it without you. And so that's one of the really interesting things about, one of the interesting premises about ODI and why collaboration is one of our core values, is that in order for it to be sustainable and in order for that innovation to be continuous, which it has to be, we have to partner and co-create. The same is true, and I think Mike might have been mentioning this in terms of our relationship with the legislature and that sort of early on connection and ability to co-create, so by the time it gets to implementation, we're not falling on our faces. But that takes trust.
How do you co-create? Like, what do you mean by that? Is it like, do you have MOUs, or like you sit, you run a workshop? Like, could you elaborate on co-creation process? I'm trying to nail down to like operation. Like
this is tough.
Sorry.
So no, this is good, and I mean, you study these things, right? And so I'm happy to be one of your subjects. So a really important part, and again, I have to give a shout out to the framers of the Office of Data and Innovation at the beginning of the Office of Digital Innovation, who really got it right in so many ways. I mean, there's a few things I mentioned, but really got it right in so many ways. One of the core components, and this is something that I've heard from colleagues in innovation departments across the country, some of which have a training function within them, many and most of which do not. And I have gotten that feedback. We need that within our department. And so within ODI, from the very beginning, we have a training division. Again, shout out to Amy Ives. So we have a training division that is dedicated to partnering up front and understanding the problem space, and then pairing with individuals within a department with our subject matter experts and specialists within ODI, and then being able to carry that forward in terms of capacity building and training going forward.
This is fascinating. We are hearing a lot about understanding customers, understanding the problem. What is it exactly we're trying to solve? I would love to talk about the innovation fellows that you have. So let's just pause on this part and I would love you if you could just talk about it. Like, what is this fellowship? I wish I was that fellow. I don't think that existed at the time. Yeah.
Well, yes, absolutely. And many of them are here, and there will be part of the breakout sessions later today. And yes, please give a round for the fellows. Please give a big round for them, because they're working their butts off. 80% time dedicated to innovating. And these are, something that we were very intentional about was that, we looked at other fellowships to model this after potentially, and there's, of course, the Presidential Innovation Fellows, which is a very successful, now long-standing fellowship program within the federal government, and that's about bringing outside talent in. And what we noticed again, and this goes back to my early experience with trust and partnerships in a department, the real traction that you needed to gain was that internal relationship, so you could build the capacity and not be the capacity and create lasting change. And so the innovation fellows, I mean, in many respects, are that secret sauce. Because, and this really goes to the intentionality behind creating a collaborative culture in state government and program design and delivery, because these folks already have full-time jobs within the executive branch, and it's not just about the fellows, it also goes to their leaders who nominated them, who support them, and who are their executive sponsors, who, yes, let's give a round of applause for those executive sponsors as well. And if you're not an executive sponsor, there's another cohort coming up and another one after that. So let's talk. But it's recreating. I often say to the team that they're prototyping a new culture.
I have a sense of jealousy here.
It's hard too.
I know. I For two reasons. First, I didn't experience being that fellow, but the second is, when I was at the governor's office, I tried to pull off something similar in collaboration with UCOP, University Office of President, and it didn't happen. I miserably failed after 1 year of trying. How did you pull it off?
I think
it sounds easy when you talk about it, but as someone who was there, I know it's extremely complicated to pull off something like this.
A lot of the topics and themes that we've been discussing today have been underlying principles of our governor from day one of his administration. And I think that it's taken some time, because the bureaucracy is so large, because the concrete boat is so slow to turn. It's taken some time for his visionary leadership to connect with the visionary leaders that preceded him and that are still working with us today, that we've heard from today. And so I think that it's kind of exciting in that it was time. Like, we have enough of the mindset shift, the desire for this level of change at the highest levels of government to provide the air cover, to push for the new and innovative ways of doing this work. And, you know, it certainly was a long time coming.
So is it fair to say that the willingness of the governor pushed for this, and it made it happen, in addition to a lot of other, of course, colleagues who were behind this and supported and et cetera? Is it, so what I'm realizing is that when you have access to a level of power that can get things done, then it's more doable if you can rally the troops toward that goal. To what extent do you think that played a role in terms of governor's agenda and the willingness of the governor's office?
I think that there was co-creation even with the governor's office. Mm-hmm. And I think that, you know, it's the governor's job to govern, and it's our job to manage. And again, when it comes to a vision and then how it gets executed, the governor and the governor's office needs partnership to understand that, like, this is what we want to achieve. We need partners and visionary leaders like Leanna and like Amy and like Mirabelle and Keely and Mike coming before them, who will partner with the governor and say, I know this is what you want, here's how we're gonna get it done. And then getting that air cover multiple steps down, right? So then I can execute and I can encourage my team to drive. And so you have these multiple levels of, and then we're trying to do that sort of bottom up as well, right? So where we're meeting in the middle by sort of bringing in the highest levels of air cover that we can get, while also reaching out to the state workforce. And again, we see that with the Engaged California program. Again, that's, you know, it's efficient, effective, and engaged. And that major premise that we cannot be effective if we're not engaged.
We do have this amazing fellowship program now, Jeffrey, and in 6 months, fellows are going to graduate. What do you hope to happen after that? What kind of role do you hope they play when they go back to their home?
Well, no, there's so much of a role that they will play that they're already playing. And I think that, you know, when they joined when the first cohort joined the fellowship, we put them through a boot camp at ODI. And so there's a product management in public sector training that we've developed. There's a user experience research training that we've developed, a lot of coaching and mentorship from Amy and others in the administration. And so a lot of the mindset that has been discussed on stage today was sort of what we all aligned on with the fellows very early on in the program. And so more so than anything, and that's also playing out in how they're executing, right? So like they've been instrumental in the innovation showcases that we've been doing. And they are going to be instrumental in doing low-cost, no-cost proofs of concept with our vendor partners. And so within 6 months' time, they're coming from ideation, problem definition, to actually potentially having a prototype in hand. And so bringing that experience back to your department, that this is possible, and and having some of the I think relationships that they've built along the way will also be very powerful.
100% sure this is going to be a success. Would you like UC Berkeley to evaluate it still?
We need evaluation partners, and something that Chris absolutely I agree with said at the top is a lot matters by the numbers that we're tracking, and so I think that we need an evaluation in partnership with academia. This could take us on another tangent, but especially as we're implementing AI and Gen AI in government, I think it's critical that we have that evaluative partner who is a third party. And as we're working in this new paradigm of building early, prototyping, testing, potentially failing, the reason why that a big reason why that doesn't happen is because we are so dedicated to serving safely and securely and first doing no harm, right? It comes from the best of intentions. And so I think that academia has a very important role to play in this paradigm shift to sort of be that support system and evaluation system for how well is it working.
Do you think evaluation, how do you see this happening again in the operation? Do you think evaluations, for example, in the policy world, should be included in legislations, like as part of the language that, well, this is going to be, you're going to spend 2 years on evaluating this program? How would you do it on the ground?
I think it should be included. I think there's a lot to say about it in the policy space, and some recent announcements actually that are very interesting around new tools that are being built to do this and that are being supported by the Recoding America Foundation. But I will say that it's absolutely critical, and this is what CDT is working on right now, is that we build that evaluation of outcomes into our projects. And that project approval and oversight and its life cycle really is dependent not on necessarily scope, cost, and schedule, but also is value being produced. Mm-hmm. And that has always been so hard to evaluate because evaluation is not expected to be produced, or a value is not expected to be produced until year 10. Mm-hmm. So we have to set the expectation that value will be produced continuously and evaluate it to consider whether or not we should keep going.
Very much appreciate that, and especially looking at the outcome evaluation instead of what we do. It's not about like allocating $10 billion to address housing crisis. It's about how many homes we've built and who has got to those homes. This is a question I have. It's out of my own curiosity. I think we could do a better job of evaluating the how in addition to the outcome. Because we do get to these outcomes, and let's say we got to those 10,000 new housing. Or let's say we were able to build this complicated new data system in just 1 year instead of 3. And we say, okay, yes, this was a success, but like there should be a way to understand what works, what doesn't work, and evaluate that how. Do you know if that's happening somewhere in terms of understanding, like evaluating and measuring the secret sauce behind what worked and didn't work?
Hub.innovation.ca.gov is where ODI holds all of our sort of toolkits that when we do establish what we think is a good way of how, we'll document it, try to share that with our colleagues. And I think that in terms of whether or not it's being continuously evaluated, I would say probably not very well. We're also focused on delivery, right? And again, that goes back to, this is probably another really great area for innovation in how we structure government, because even ODI is very focused on helping departments with delivery, which of course is very important. But evaluation and measurement is just as important and requires entire skill sets, tools, and systems that we still don't have in place.
What if we have one last question and then open up?
Sure.
In 3 to 5 years, where would you like to be? Not you yourself, but ODI.
Costa Rica? ODI. So, I mean, sometimes we can talk about, we're really doing our job well if we put ourselves out of business. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting about that is that when you're talking about innovation, there is no limit to the horizon. And so my hope is that in 3 to 5 years, these sort of fundamental issues that we're all now very clearly aligned on, that need to be changed, and that we are all now rebuilding new ways of doing the work, so we're not repeating those same mistakes. Mm-hmm. I would love in 3, certainly in 5, that those become sort of stories about the past, and that the Office of Data and Innovation, and I don't know, I'm not sure what the innovation would be at that time. Right now, we're focused on solving some of these systemic issues that are slowing us down, keeping us from being agile, helping us to get to more outcome, impact-driven, faster service delivery to meet the expectations of Californians. I think that we can, hopefully then turn our focus on, in 3 to 5 years, who knows where the technology landscape's going to be, where the policy landscape's going to be, but certainly there will be no shortage of things to innovate.
What would be the secret sauce to get there? So Jeffrey, I love about you is that you talk about things as if like it's just a piece of cake, we do it, and it's and we all know it's not like that. Like, is it more around partnerships, collaborations? Like, what is it more about building trust? And
it's about all those things. I think one of the things that's really interesting for this team, this group here to focus on, and the governor's got his sell-by date, as he likes to call it, and this mandate to run through the tape. I'm thinking a lot about what's next in terms of the next administration, because his leadership has been visionary in all of these respects that he established ODI in his first budget in 2019. Established RFI Squared was the request for innovative ideas, was I think the first or second executive order he wrote within the administration. And so I think that establishing some of those great hows in a lasting way as quickly as we can is going to be really important. And then supporting the next administration to continue the great work. Thank you, Nader. Thanks, everyone. Thank you very much.